came back to let you know. Got a thing for you, and I can't let go. No. Oh, wow, I didn't think that called that. And I can't let go. Um, I keep wondering what is wrong with me. But I'm in a daze from your love, you see. Sorry guys, I'm sitting there singing. My buddy was doing a quarantine party on Facebook Live, and he actually had some good songs. You know, some old school songs that just stick with you. And I was trying to tell somebody that's the reason why old school music will always be timeless. Because you can play some Bobby Caldwell, you can play some Lenny Williams, you can play anything, and it still is fire. Especially Luther. Don't you remember you told me you loved me, baby? You said you'd be coming back this way again. You know, that sticks with you. Especially that baby, 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 ooh, baby. Oh. Oh, I'm a dork. Okay, let me get this going, guys. I apologize. I'm in a singing mood. Singing mood for a Saturday, so I apologize for that. I shouldn't apologize for singing mood. I mean, if you're in a singing mood, you're in a great mood. We're just going to get some sharing out the way, and then go right back in. Go right into this, guys. So just give me about a few seconds here as I'm just sitting here singing my tail off. Well, trying to sing. I got no singing voice. I'll be honest with you. I got no singing voice, and don't let a lot of other people fool you about that part. I wish I could sing. You know, I wish I could sing like David Ruffin. Ain't nobody come to see you, Otis. Alright. I think we have gotten everything we're going to get out the way, so we're just going to go ahead and go into it. Alright. Today's date is April 11, 2020, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, this is an adult podcast, which means things of adult language may be said and things of graphic nature may be shown, so your discretion is definitely advised. Woo! Well, you know, as we still begin, I still feel like every week we're just that much closer to either Resident Evil, The Walking Dead, or Zombieland. One of the two. But anyway, getting right into it, guys. Let's just go ahead and get to the meat of the matter that now in the Democratic primary, there's only one.
To the Democratic presidential nomination, his last opponent, Senator Bernie Sanders, suspended his campaign yesterday. He told supporters his path to victory was virtually impossible, his words, and continuing his campaign would interfere with the fight against the coronavirus. As Ed O'Keefe reports, the Vermont Independent is still focused on defeating President Trump.
We are, talking to Joe, and we're talking to his team about how we can work together.
Last night, Senator Bernie Sanders told Stephen Colbert he would do everything he could to stop President Trump, but stopped short of a full-throated endorsement for Joe Biden.
He's not going to adopt my platform. I got that. All right. But if he can move in that direction, I think people will say, you know what, this is a guy who we should support.
The road to victory for Sanders had already been blocked by simple math and then exacerbated by the coronavirus. Sanders trails the former vice president by more than 300 delegates. The pandemic put a stop to campaign rallies and any hope of breaking through.
I have concluded that this battle for the Democratic nomination will not be successful.
But Sanders plans to keep his name on the ballot in states that have yet to hold primary contests in hopes of influencing the party's 2020 platform.
His leadership is going to continue, including working to address the incredible challenges we're now facing.
Biden, who spoke to Sanders Wednesday, acknowledged the senator's appeal to younger voters.
He didn't just run a political campaign, he created a movement. And that's a good thing for the nation and for our future.
Biden advisors now believe the contest against President Trump will come down to an argument over competence, experience, compassion, and empathy. Mr. Trump's re-election campaign on Wednesday released this ad trying to link Biden to Sanders.
They're more alike than you think.
As the presumptive nominee, Biden can now start focusing on picking a running mate. His team is expected to begin the formal vetting process in the coming days. We also expect a formal
Well, as you see it, folks, unfortunately, creepy old man Biden somehow skated past. But at the same time, we really should be surprised. Bernie Sanders is literally, I would say, probably as middle of the road as it gets because his policies and programs, which I did actually like as far as what he was trying to do, but a lot of people, label that with socialism, saying, we're giving handouts, free money, and, this is all these things have been associated with every president that believes the right thing needs to be done. Especially with Sanders because he believed that the stimulus package that is actually currently being still talked about or still in the process of being sent out, he talked about how it's not enough, that, countries like Canada and everybody else are giving $2,000 and up a month to their constituents, and we're only getting a one-time payment of $1,200 or so much, which, let's be honest, $1,200 ain't going to really do a lot. But I can understand from a lot of people right now who are in dire straits that $1,200 can give you some relief. But the thing about Biden is just that he is now starting to adopt some of Sanders' policies. He's already sat there and said about dropping the Medicare eligibility down to age 60. It's currently at age 65, and it's actually 65 right now. But he wants to drop the Medicare eligible age to 60, and he also wants to forgive student debt for those that have actually, let me take this back. He wants to forgive student loan debt for those earning up to $125,000 that have attended public colleges. So I just don't get now because this seems very wishy-washy to me. Because if anybody remembers during the actual campaign, during the actual debates, where Sanders actually brought the fact about forgiving student loans and lowering Medicare, Biden was against it. I mean, even more so, he was against the fact of student debt forgiveness. He was actually against that. He was actually against the fact of lowering the Medicare ages, and now all of a sudden he's doing a complete 180. I'm not saying he's doing this to curtail favor with Biden supporters, but it feels like that. It truly does. But again, it's one of those things we'll have to come up to as we get closer to the. The nomination is just going to happen at this point. He pretty much is all but got the nomination. Now, here goes the running partners. I would think that if he is smart, he would take on Stacey Abrams. He would take on, I would say Andrew Gillum, but apparently right now Andrew Gillum is a little bit of hot water because it's kind of hard to explain why you are drunk as hell around people smoking meth. That's all I'm saying. It's hard to explain that. So Andrew's probably going to be out as VP pick. I think Stacey Abrams would work. But right now, Joe cannot wash off the stink of Anita Clark. And for all those that don't know who Anita Clark is, she basically was the person that came forward against a Supreme Court judge. I'm sorry, Anita Hill, I should say. I'm sorry, not Anita Clark, Anita Hill. Where she came forward about sexual allegations toward a current Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas. And Joe Biden was residing over that particular allegation, and we all know how that went. So he's still trying to, I guess, wash off the stink from that. But, we should never let them forget because they're never going to let us forget about Bill Cosby. Anyway, moving right along, guys. These preachers these days are more comical than inspiring. Especially with the COVID-19 virus, let's be honest, the numbers are trending down. They are trending down and people are recovering, which they're not saying a lot of in the news press. But at the same time, I hope you guys are still being safe. You're being preventative. You're still trying to do all the social distancing and all that good stuff and monitor yourselves and be careful who you're around and things of that nature. Preachers, however, well, let's just say that there's some that truly believe in their craft.
The Almighty God.
The El Shaddai God.
The El Shaddai God.
The God who is almighty.
The God who is almighty.
He's more than enough.
He's more than enough.
He is the miracle working God.
He is the miracle working God.
Today, we speak to this atmosphere.
We speak to this atmosphere.
From the state of Washington.
From the state of Washington.
To the state of Maine.
To the state of Maine.
From Southern California.
Southern California
to Brownsville, Texas,
to Brownsville, Texas,
and the tip of Florida,
and the tip of Florida,
and wherever else in the world it's needed.
and wherever else in the world it's needed.
When Almighty, strong, south wind,
South wind,
heat, burn this thing
burn this thing
in the name of Jesus.
in the name of
Satan, you bow your knee.
Satan. You bow your knee.
You fall on your face.
You fall on your face.
COVID-19,
COVID-19.
I blow the wind of God
The wind of God
on you.
on you.
You are destroyed forever,
You are destroyed forever.
and you'll never be back.
And you'll never be back.
Thank you, our God.
Thank you, our God.
Let it happen.
Let it happen. Let it
Cause it to happen.
cause it to happen.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hang on. I've watched this at least 15 times. I'm still laughing. I'm sorry. Is it just me, or does Kenneth Copeland look? Is it for a guy who's supposed to be a word of God? Is he slowly transforming into a demon? Am I the only? Look, please point this out in the comment section. I really want y'all to, because anytime I see Kenneth Copeland talking, and it's just like, it's like the face, it's like all this. I was like, dude, how much Botox have you been taking? It's almost to the point to now, it's like, and the whole thing, I'm sorry, did we watch a summoning? I kind of feel like we watched a summoning. I kind of feel like this wasn't worship. This was more along the lines of, this was honestly more along the lines of just like, you know, he started saying, from Washington to Texas to Florida, heat, wind, and I was like, are you summoning? I kind of felt like I was just like watching something I should. Well, of course we're all watching and laughing our heads off, but guys, there's no answer to this, because he's not the only guy. Because, you know, Pat Robertson has always got something to say too, and well, let's be honest, it's just funny.
To blow a trumpet right now for the church. I think it's time. Do you realize what's happened? This is an inert virus, and we have cowered before this inert virus. It has destroyed our economy. It has put panic into our entire population. It's disrupting all of our way of living, and it is closing the churches of Jesus Christ, and people are not able to go and worship together in their churches because of this bug. And I think it's time for the church to go on the attack. Instead of just cowering in our cars and in our social distancing, I think it's time that we stand up and speak the word of God and command that thing to leave us. We have authority in the name of Jesus Christ as his servants. And the Bible says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I'll hear their prayer and forgive their sin and heal their land. And I believe it's time that we speak out boldly, and in all the churches coming into Easter in this Holy Week, I think it's time in every congregation, instead of saying, oh, we're going to be COVID sensitive, or we're going to catch something, let's rebuke this thing in the name of Jesus. And I want you to pray with me right now. I just believe it's time to go on the attack. We are not supposed to be fearful. Fear not, God said, I'm with you. I'm going to deliver you. And we serve the God of heaven, and he's certainly greater than a little bug. And this is an inert virus that is terrifying and destroying the whole economy and the society that we live in. And let's not take it anymore. Let's not take it anymore. And I want you to pray in your churches, every church, instead of you covering yourself and huddling and all that stuff. Speak out. Pastors, every one of you in your churches, declare it. Declare the victory in the name of Jesus. So I ask you right now, as we begin this program, you pray with me at this moment. We're going to rebuke this thing. We do not have to cower before an inert virus. Who ever heard of such a thing? We're God's people. And this is a bug that is terrorizing our entire population. We can't let it happen.
Oh, again, I'm sorry. I had to cut that short. What is it with all these older preachers? And thank you, Ox, for pointing out he looks like Hoggle from Labyrinth and is batshit insane. Pat Robertson's no different. But it's just the fact that the face and just the kind of the hunch. And it's like, I'm starting to think that all these preachers that are getting older are slowly transforming into demons. I just want, you know what I want one day? I want Pat Robertson just to turn around and just horns pop up, and he's going to try to sit there and say they're horns for Jesus. I just want to be able to see that. Or to see Kenneth Copeland finally decide to, finally go that full transformation. But it's funny as hell. But again, this whole thing of how, and the reason why I point these two things out, as far as comical aside, because let's be honest, listening to Kenneth Copeland or Pat Robertson and all the many other so-called preachers out there is funny as shit. But it does present a very, very dangerous precedent. Now, again, I'm not knocking those that have religion. I'm not. If you believe, whatever you decide to believe in or worship or pray to, that is on you. But logical sense, though, telling individuals to turn around and sit there and say, well, instead of us, letting the doctors and the scientists and all the researchers do their jobs to try to steer this virus or try to help those with the virus, it doesn't help to come in large groups and pray about it. I mean, that was the problem with a lot of these churches that are still open. A lot of these churches are still open are basically allowing this virus to still spread. It's the whole entire reason that a lot of us are working from home right now. So again, it makes no sense. For the simple fact of the matter, it's just that, yes, you can worship. Yes, you are free to pray, again, or whatever it is that you do for your enlightenment. Cool. But please don't sit there and be like, wind, rain, earth, terra, Gaia, I call upon you. And no, I just, to me, it's just like that's doing too much. But then again, it's theatrics. But also, this is also the reason why sometimes religion itself, for those who are in a certain position of influence, should be exercising common sense instead of trying to sit there and say, we're going to pray, we're going to declare victory over this right now. We're going to declare, in Jesus' name, we're going to declare victory over this COVID-19. We're going to take away from this social distancing. We're going to get right back with Jesus, y'all. And it's just the whole thing. It's funny, but it's also cringing. Because a lot of people are going to believe it. And those are the very same people that will wind up getting sick and start this whole thing all over again. Although globally now, 300,000 people, including over about 87,000 cases in the U.S., are now recovering from COVID-19. So there is good news, but we still need to be vigilant. We still need to be proactive. We still need to be cautious. We still need to do all of these things that are going to basically lower the amount of cases, because that's how we beat this thing. We don't beat this thing by simply praying it away. But again, I thought that was funny. Moving right along, another thing that's pissed me off today. Well, I won't say it pissed me off. I will sit there and say I'm annoyed. It's just that milk prices in production were both rising in January. However, because farmers cannot make a profit off of this, they are dumping the milk. I wish I could make that up. They say, see, this is where I say when we read certain articles where it says they have been forced. Farmers are forced to dump or waste thousands of gallons of milk a day. I was like, it's the thing that kills me about this. And you're right, Alex. Kenneth Copeland did sound like he was summoning Captain Planet. But the thing about this is, I just can't understand why in some areas where you have industries like farms and dairy cows, things of that nature, they produce thousands of milk a day. And apparently because you can't sell it, you would rather just go ahead and dump it. I mean, I talked about this on the podcast last week with another farmer out there who was wasting gallons of milk, thousands of gallons of milk. And the thing that ticks me off is just that it truly tells you how much of a capitalist society we're in. Because you have, if I was a farmer and I was producing thousands of milk a day that I could make profit out of, but I know families could use it. Oh, here's a wild idea. Donate it. I mean, we can't sit there and say, well, food banks are a great idea, but farmers themselves who actually have a lot of a product they can't sell, why not give it away? And it's to me, that's the problem. It's just that why is no one asking the farmers why are you not just giving it away? I know plenty of families that could use milk, especially in this day and age where, you know, job markets are a little tight, paychecks are a little tight, and everybody who's waiting for this Trump check that supposedly comes out the following Wednesday, that's going to be questioned. That's questionary in itself. But the simple fact of the matter is just that when farmers are dumping milk, and it's not just farmers, there's different other areas out here that have an abundance of their products, aside from farmers, who could be giving it away to food banks, who could be giving it away, who could be donating it to their neighbors and things of that nature. You could actually help people get through this, but because of profit's sake, you just dump it. It literally makes no sense to waste a product that you cannot use but others can. And that just tells you how fucked up of a capitalist society we're truly in. And speaking of that society, I know a lot of people out here are wearing masks. And despite how you feel about it, because there's contradicting information, I myself don't wear a mask. I rarely actually went outside, but when I'm out and about, I do see people wearing masks and gloves. I actually saw one dude in a full-blown hazmat. I actually seen one dude in a full-blown hazmat suit. I wish I could make that up, but he really was in a hazmat suit. But I also understand that people do wear a mask. But I would say this to black people, only because I've seen videos pop up, which you can see on social media and on Facebook and all those other areas, where black people are actually going into stores with masks on and they're being racially profiled. And the thing about it is, I was trying to tell somebody, I said, this article I saw where it sit there and said, the CDC's guidance on wearing masks comes with an added burden for minorities. If you're a person of color, you just can't wear a mask. And that's the thing. And I think, honestly, that's a fair point, as the article just goes to show into, that some law enforcement out there, already racially profile minorities, specifically black people. So you can imagine someone going into a store with a mask on, and immediately the police are on them. Which, like I said, there's multiple amounts of those videos on social media where you see a person that's already on their phone and you see a law enforcement officer that's not too far off from them. And it alone tells you that there's a fear. And don't get me wrong, I've always sat there and told people about this beforehand, about my feelings on law enforcement. And the thing about it is, yes, there is a racial bias, and you can tell. And the fact that nowadays, where people have to go, where people are trying to adhere to the stay-at-home executive orders, and you gotta go to the store. Let's be honest, we all gotta eat. You eventually do have to go to the store, unless you do Instacart or whatever, fresh delivery, whatever is in your area. That also being said, for those that don't, you do gotta go in the store, and you do want to make sure you're safe, especially if you're immunocompromised, if you easily get sick, if you're just wanting to prevent yourself from becoming a carrier, because a lot of people could have the coronavirus and not show any symptoms, but you could definitely be around somebody else who might be more susceptible to the virus, and then they get sick because you were carrying it. So a lot of people, when they go in the grocery stores, want to be as careful as humanly possible. I get it. Unfortunately, now we have to look out for the cops basically trying to look out and trying to harass or stop people too. But at the same time, I will say to my people, you got to be careful. I mean, like I said before, like I said about law enforcement, know the laws. You have to know laws better in your state than the cops do. The cops are basically preying on your ignorance and their intimidation. But if you know the law, you know your rights, you will always be safe, in my opinion. But again, that's just one of those things I'm telling folks. When you're in stores like that with an oxygen mask on, you're black, definitely don't go alone, and be careful. That's the best way I can put that. But speaking about being careful, let's go ahead and get to the voting, since we already know now that it's going to be old white man versus old white man for the presidential run. That's going to be happening later this year. And Trump actually brings up a very interesting yet controversial point, and he still contradicts himself. And I'm talking about mail-in voting.
Of mail-in voting, mail-in ballots for voting.
I think mail-in voting is
but
horrible.
you voted by
It's
mail
corrupt.
in Florida's election last month, didn't you?
Sure, I could vote by mail for that.
How do you reconcile
Because I'm
that?
allowed to. Well, that's called out of state. You know why I voted? Because I happen to be in the White House and I won't be able to go to Florida to vote.
What's the difference between mailing within
well, there's a
state or
big
mailing
difference
outside the
between
state?
somebody that's out of state and does a ballot and everything sealed, certified, and everything else. You see what you have to do with the certifications, and you get thousands and thousands of people sitting in somebody's living room signing ballots all over the place. No, I think that mail-in voting is a terrible thing. I think if you vote, you should go. And even the concept of early voting is not the greatest because a lot of things happen, but it's okay. But you should go and you should vote. I think you should go and you should vote. You look at what they do, where they grab thousands of mail-in ballots and they dump it. I'll tell you what, and I don't have to tell you, you can look at the statistics. There's a lot of dishonesty going along with mail-in voting.
Yes, he contradicted himself. He said, I think mail-in voting is a terrible idea. But didn't you do it? Well, yes, I'm allowed to because, it's Florida. I'm here in Washington. I can't be in Florida, so I can mail it off. Yeah, the look on the reporter's face said it all. And I just thought to myself, it reminds me of when those infamous Nixon tapes, when the president does it, it's not illegal. That's where my mind went with that. But again, mail-in voting is becoming a reality again with the COVID-19 coming out there. We're still hearing out cases. Large gatherings are still not allowed. So you can only imagine that as a voter poll, which is still amazing to me. Why are we not postponing this? Only because, well, you can go down the list of A, B, and C. I could sit there and say that the conservative base is trying to move these folks forward in order to secure their holdings as far as politics go and things of that nature. But let's be honest, it's all messed up that some things are just not being put on hold right now. But to give you an idea of what people are facing when they're voting, this is what you have to look forward to.
Today in Wisconsin, the governor there, others tried to institute limitations so that people weren't risking their lives by going to vote. Social distancing, extending voter access, extending the deadline, etc. They were blocked by the state court, the federal court.
Yeah, and look at this video. I mean, this is what's taking place. This is at a polling location in Milwaukee just last hour. Look at that line, blocks and blocks and blocks long. The primary here was forced to press forward after a last-minute controversial Supreme Court decision. Omar Jimenez joins us there. The good for them, they're staying 6 feet apart, but just talk to us about what led up to this. It was a real push and an executive order, and then finally.
Yes, that's currently in Wisconsin as of yesterday, where they had to do voting just because the Supreme Court basically overruled postponing a primary vote. Think about that for a second. That was a line. That wasn't a line to get Jordans, my friend. That was basically a line to vote. 6 people apart, and from my best guess, that was at least 3 city blocks and counting. And yet, mail-in voting is a terrible idea. I still want to know why. Because It's going to, I mean, either that or you get to go online. I mean, for the life of me, how in the world have we gotten to the point now to where we have all this technology, we have all these other means, and we're not incorporating them in voting? You still go to a booth, you still press a button, you still hand in a slip, and then you're out the door. Whereas, why can't we all not just go online and vote? You're telling me with all the sophistication that we have that we still can't figure out a way to vote from our homes or vote from a place of safety, that we still have to go out to these polling places? Shout out to the people who do work the election polls, because you guys are putting up with a lot. But again, why are we not finding easier ways of making voting more convenient? Because we keep talking about how all votes are important, which they are. But at the same time, why are we not trying to find different ways to make it easier and accessible to the American people? That's all I'm saying. But I shouldn't be surprised, because like I said, that could be our future going forward. Just because the simple fact of the matter is that you see those long lines and you're thinking, do I really want to vote? Because that could dismay voters too. Voters who want to vote don't like waiting. And they see a line like that, they may not go vote. That's just being honest. But like I said, if someone in the political party just sit there and said, what about online voting, and actually try to research that to see if it's viable, it would be way better than what we have right now. That's just being honest. And speaking of being honest, because this one's going to involve gun nuts, I call them homosexuals. Well, homosexuals, this is what you guys sound like.
Flags held high, AR-15s slung over their shoulders. These protesters say they're here to fight for the future of their country.
Gun saves lives. I mean, it's obvious. It's our God-given right to protect ourselves, our family.
It's America, right? We live free.
Virginia, the latest flashpoint in the gun debate sweeping the country.
Virginia tightening security ahead of a protest defending the Second Amendment as it's under assault there.
Monday's rally comes in response to 3 new gun control bills.
Governor Ralph Blackface Northam downplaying Democrats' plans to strip people of their Second Amendment rights.
More than 20,000 gun rights advocates descended on Richmond today for what used to be a small annual event, a state of emergency declared. The crowd protesting the state's efforts to overhaul gun laws.
As Virginia goes, so does the rest of the nation. That's what I believe.
The rally just got underway. An officer told me they expected about 10,000 people here inside on the Capitol grounds, but outside on the streets, there are thousands more.
Last May in Virginia Beach, a gunman entered a municipal building and killed 12 people, sparking a renewed conversation around gun control. There's been a stark political shift. Democrats now in control. The legislature and the governorship have proposed sweeping gun control legislation, requiring background checks on all firearm sales, cap handgun purchases at 1 per month, and let local governments ban weapons from certain locations. President Trump tweeting today that Democrats are working hard to take away your Second Amendment rights. This is just the beginning. Virginia currently has some of the weakest gun laws in the nation, according to the Giffords Law Center.
The people showing up right here sends a message to Governor Northam and the Democrats that our rights shall not be infringed. These infringements are unconstitutional, so we're going to challenge them all the way up to the Supreme Court.
The Geary family of 6 drove 100 miles to be here today.
I value our constitutional rights, and the right to bear arms I think is very important. And if I don't do it for them, then they don't have those rights that I grew up with.
Is that why you wanted to bring them out here with you today, to show them an example?
I think it's important for them to learn early that you need to take an active role in protecting your rights and voicing your opinion.
6-year-old Charlie just beginning to understand the lessons his father's teaching him. From families to those in costume.
Okay, so let me stop it right there. So the reason why I bring that up is basically because currently in Virginia, Governor Ralph Northam actually did enact 3 laws, 3 new legislations of gun control. One was universal background checks on all gun purchases. That means that if you go to a gun store, if you go to a swap meet, if you go to any of these places that sell firearms, that yes, A universal background check will need to be done before you can purchase it. He's also introduced what they call a red flag bill that allows authorities to temporarily take away guns from people deemed to be dangerous to themselves or others, and limited handgun purchases to 1 a month. So, let's think about these. Let's think about the 3 things that were just said. In universal background checks, authorities do have the right to confiscate your weapons if you are deemed dangerous to yourself or other people, and handgun purchases to 1 a month. Here's the problem. And yet, ammosexuals are freaking the hell out. You're not gonna take away our. You're not gonna take away our guns. You're not gonna take away our guns. Our guns are our right. Second Amendment. You come and try to take this AR away from me. I'll see what happens. You know, my house don't call 911. I'm sorry. I don't know why I put a country accent on it, but it just felt appropriate. But again, it makes no sense why they're protesting. Number one, oh good, I don't know how many times I can repeat this, but I'm gonna keep on repeating it. Number one, your guns will never be taken away from you. The government is not going to come to your door and take all away your guns. Number two, your right to bear arms was based on the fact of the matter is that the founding fathers of the Constitution decided that people should be able to arm themselves in the event the government just became as corrupt as the British aristocracy back then. It is not just because you can own guns. It's because the fact of the matter is they want to give the people an option to defend themselves in the face of a tyrannical government. And here's also a reason why you should be concerned about taking your guns. The government has better ones and they have more than you do. So why is this being put into place? Because of all the school shootings, of all the access. Because the simple fact of the matter is, where this all came from was not because of the fact that these guns were purchased illegally or because, you know, they were sold to immigrants and all this stuff. Oh no. A lot of the guns that have happened in the most recent shootings came just because they were purchased with little less legislation. I've been saying this whole time in Tennessee, you know how easy it is to get a gun in Tennessee if you got a record or not? Go to a swap meet. Go to a gun and knife show. I tell you this from experience. It is way too easy if you got money and you got an ID and you go to a gun and knife store, gun and knife swap meet somewhere in Tennessee. I cannot tell you how easy it is that you can get a firearm the same day. You'll walk right past state troopers as you leave, and all they're going to sit there and ask for is to make sure that the gun is secure and you have your receipt. If you have both of those things, you're clear to go. Not the fact of the matter if you got a record, not the fact if you've been arrested, not the fact you've been incarcerated, not the fact if you have a history of domestic violence or violence in itself. It is amazing to me that the red flag law, which again, the red flag law itself, when they say you have to be deemed, I know Alex, I just saw your thing pop up about that. It's just that now the red flag law itself is just that if the authorities deem you to be a threat, that means that if you have a history, that means if you have crimes, that means that in some way or form, because they're going to basically look at you and do a social media profile search, if they see things that are deemed accountable as a threat, then I got no problem with that. Because here's the thing, if you are a threat or you show that you're a threat, then yes, you should be watched. You should be monitored. You should be under surveillance. I can't knock that. Because at the same time, he's like, there is preventative and then there's overwatch. And honestly, we can't sit there and say that we want gun violence to stop without it becoming Big Brother. But at the same time, if we have individuals that show tendencies of violence or show that they can be violent to themselves or to others, then yes, preventative natures need to be taken. I can live with that. What do you say, Alex? The only thing that I see in these gun laws that potentially being unreasonable might be the red flag laws because it seems like it could be abused both objectively and subjectively. But that depends on the exact wording of the law, too. I see nothing wrong with background checks limiting the purchase to 1 gun a month. Not everyone is Joe Exotic and has to blow shit on the regular. Oh, Joe Exotic. Oh, wow. We you know what? Tiger King is basically Duck Dynasty with no money and more meth. But again, it's I can't see anything wrong with that. I mean, 1 handgun a month. Have you seen handgun purchases? Jesus Christ. 400, a handgun these days is what? Bargain base $475, $500. I mean, you find something cheaper than that, you need to be worried about if it was used in a murder. I'm just saying. And so, to see people flip out about this, I said one handgun purchase a month. Do you really need to purchase a shitload of guns within a month? Because if you're purchasing a shitload of guns within a month, and you're not a firearms instructor, you're not teaching a class, you're not part of a law enforcement, I just don't see the reason why people get up in arms about purchasing one handgun a month. Unless, like I said, now I understand, I've heard people say this, well, I don't want my rights infringed. Your rights are not infringed. It's just the fact of the matter is just the current legislation is allowing too many people who shouldn't have access to firearms get firearms. I think it's a nice start. I can't knock this. Not at all. I'm actually for this. But, you're always going to have those ambosexuals that disagree. But again, if you are not a threat and you're not purchasing handguns by the day and you can be okay with background checks, what's the problem? Aside from the fact of the matter is, all you believe is what the old conservative talking point is. The government is going to take away your guns. It used to be the government. Then it used to be Obama. Then it used to be Biden. Then it used to be Sanders. Then it used to be Warren. Then it used to be, oh crap, now I can't think of the guy's name. Is it so bad that all these candidates that come and go, you come and go, you come and go. I can't think of that guy's name out of Texas. And that's sad though, because he was always on television. Damn, it's gonna come to me in a minute, because he sat there and said, "Are we coming for your guns?" Hell yes, we're coming for your guns. And again, it amazes me so that the rhetoric is still there. It just changes the name. And what amosexuals just don't get, nobody's coming for your guns, because the government's got their own and more ammo, and basically their guns are better than yours. So, also moving right along, guys, speaking of the government doing some stuff, well, they're trying to introduce another package for the stimulus plan, and, well, let's be honest, this is our government, this is our tax dollars at work.
Who've lost their jobs in this crisis just hit a roadblock. A second bailout package has been blocked by the Senate. ABC's Inez de la Cotera reports.
This morning, scenes like these.
Certainly, it is a point that it is so needed that this many people did show up.
Becoming the new normal for towns and cities across the country.
I have never seen this.
From California.
It really helps a lot.
To Texas.
I am so thankful.
To New York.
I'm worried about food, putting food in my mouth.
So many Americans struggling to buy food and pay bills as applications for unemployment benefits jump by another 6.6 million, bringing the 3-week total to nearly 17 million. That's about 11% of the U.S. workforce.
We need more funding, and we need it fast.
President Trump now requesting another $250 billion to help small businesses. But Democrats blocking that measure. They're insisting on another $250 billion for hospitals and states.
This was, in fact, designed to fail, designed as a political stunt.
Meanwhile, new trouble with the first relief plan as Americans face delays getting their extra $600 per week in unemployment benefits.
How long it takes will vary by states. Some states' systems will take longer.
Many state websites crashing because of overwhelming demand. Overnight, President Trump promising more help for farmers, saying the government will use all the funds and authorities at its disposal to make sure our food supply is stable. And college students will also be getting some help. The Department of Education is releasing $6 billion in emergency grants to help students with their debt.
As much as I hate that word, it is the new normal. It's the simple fact of the matter is that, yes, there was a second plan to be put in place. However, it's misleading because it said it's helping people, but it's really direct toward businesses. And this is why I sit there and say where America gets it wrong. Because I posted on my Facebook earlier this week, I sat there and pointed out Canada. Canada right now has passed a bill and made it active within 48 hours where they have given every Canadian $2,000 or more a month for the next foreseeable 6 months. And they were actually showing Canadians going to the site, applying, and immediately getting their payments 2 to 3 days later. Starting their payments 2 to 3 days later. So it is amazing to me that one country gets it right. And I mean, within a matter of days. We are now going into a month, and we still, and it's like, we are into a month, and you still have individuals excited about one payment. One payment that they're excited about. And at the same time, that's it. That's all you get. Wall Street got $1.5 trillion. The banks got an undimensionable amount of money. Automakers got bailed out. The airline industry itself is about to be bailed out. Which, by the way, if you ever want to book your travel, now is a wonderful time because the prices are ridiculous. But they're about to get bailed out. But again, when it comes to the American people, and I've said this in my Facebook post as well, this is the American capitalist engine at work. Because what they don't want to say is that Americans themselves, we are literally the oil in the engine. And let's be honest, the oil itself is the most overworked part in the engine because it's the only thing that keeps the engine running. And they are never going to, and I hate to say this, I really do, but the current status quo of Democrats and Republicans will never give Americans what they truly need. We actually, like Bernie had pointed out, Americans really need a lot more. A single person needs 5,000. A couple needs 10,000 or more. A couple who has a child should be getting 1,500 to 2,000 a child. And a lot of people are sitting there saying, well, that's just giving money away. Well, how else do you think we got out of so many issues? How we got out of the Depression? How do you think we got out of recessions? Is because we gave the middle and lower classes more money, we gave them tax breaks, and we raised taxes on the rich. Look at the history. We did the same things. We did the same thing to get out of the recession. We did the same thing to get out of the Great Depression. Keep in mind, speaking of the Great Depression, everything that's going on right now is actually leading to how we got to the Depression. We topped off the rich and we starved the poor, and expected that trickle-down economics still work when they don't. But also another scary thing about the coronavirus stimulus checks, a lot of people won't get them.
Americans awaiting coronavirus cash help is not on the way. They fall through the cracks in the $2 trillion stimulus bill. And there's a lot of cracks, like disabled people who rely on their parents for help.
The money would still be tremendously helpful. You know, I still buy all his clothes. You know, I still, buy him toys and things to help him, with his daily living.
Jennifer Irwin's son Simon is 21. He's nonverbal. Most adults who don't have income are eligible for a $1,200 stimulus check, but not Simon. Jennifer claims him on her taxes. That disqualifies him from getting a check.
It's discouraging. We struggle enough as it is.
Parents get an extra $500 for their dependent children under 17. But Simon's an adult, so Jennifer won't get extra money either.
I know so many parents, who feel the same way, that there's just no resources. And this is just, another nail in the coffin.
There's no check for seniors who live with their adult children, if their children claim their aging parents as dependents. There's no check for immigrants who pay taxes but don't have a social security number. No check for college kids or even 17-year-olds, if their parents claim them on their taxes. Susan Anderson has a 19-year-old at home in Texas and a 23-year-old about to graduate college.
They're not on their own. And so you feed them and you still provide for them, so you're not getting anything for that, and they're not getting anything. And I know there's a huge gap.
There's a reason it's like this. Congress was under the gun to get money out the door to struggling Americans now. And lawmakers wanted to make sure the money went to the people who really need it, to Americans whose livelihoods were directly affected by coronavirus. There wasn't going to be a perfect system, and Congress had to act fast.
I'm not sure how many ways to say it, Madam President, but the clock has run out. The buzzer is sounding. The hour for bargaining, as though this were business as usual, has expired.
So some people will get left out, like baby Aaron, born in February of this year. Too late to be claimed by his parents on their 2019 tax return. That's what the IRS is using to determine who's eligible.
We have him, he has a social security number now. And so in some branch of the government, he does exist.
Right.
But I guess as far as tax cuts go and stimulus package, he doesn't exist.
Craig Schoenberg and his wife, who's on unpaid maternity leave, will still get their own payment of $1,200 per person. For Aaron, they'll have to wait until next year to get the $500 when they file their 2020 tax return. In the meantime,
you're not going to find diapers or baby wipes on.
Says a lot, doesn't it, folks? It really does. And that's the truth. A lot of people are going to fall through the cracks on this just because they did do a shit job. And the shit job is just that they knew that everybody wasn't going to be covered by this. And you can blame the Republicans. I can blame Mitch McConnell for letting over 200,000 bills sit on his desk, which he never did bring up to the Senate. I can go over some fact of the matter of Nancy Pelosi not pushing hard enough for everybody to get benefits. There's blame on both sides about this. But at the same time, the blame itself is not going to help the fact of the matter. It's just that there are people out there who honestly could use the help and are not going to be able to get it. And let's be honest, the new normal right now, and yeah, I did mention the Great Depression. I think we're actually about to be hitting that because apparently Too Big to Fail was not a big enough lesson. And the only reason I say that now is because the same things that I'm seeing in the media are the same things I'm seeing around my home state of Tennessee. Stuff like this.
Lines, not just for unemployment benefits, but for food. And tonight, the numbers that explain why those lines and the need for food are only growing. 6.6 million Americans filed unemployment claims last week alone. The 3-week total now, nearly 17 million. 1 in 10 workers in America now without a paycheck. ABC's Victor Akendo witnessing those long lines today in South Florida.
Tonight, with millions of Americans still waiting for those stimulus checks and 10% of Americans out of a job in 3 weeks, long lines for food becoming a new normal. These cars lined up in Los Angeles.
Certainly, it is a point that it is so needed that this many people did show up.
In San Diego, help for military families.
I'm pregnant right now with a very high-risk pregnancy, it really helps a lot.
And in Plano, Texas, where Cheryl Jackson runs a food pantry.
I am so thankful to every person that's got out of their house, came out of their house and donated 1 box of cereal for another family to be able to eat. I'm grateful.
The Hernandez family in Miami, grateful too. How much does this help out?
Let me tell you, and now it's getting worse because you go to the supermarkets and things are getting, you don't see nothing, the shelves are empty.
They just picked up enough food to last their children a few days. Miami-Dade County Public Schools distributing more than 700,000 meals since schools were shuttered.
There was never a lapse. Kids never were left without support, without nourishment.
So many families need those stimulus checks. By one count, nearly a third of Americans couldn't afford to pay their rent this month. For small businesses, the Payment Protection Program still struggling to meet demands.
Just waiting. It's a waiting game for us now. I'm trying to apply for this or apply for that, but nothing come through yet.
The Federal Reserve announcing today they're pumping $2.3 trillion into the economy so banks can keep lending.
We want to make sure that customers know the banks will get to all of them.
For those whose jobs are considered essential, many are risking their lives for that paycheck. 59-year-old Vitalina Williams worked as a part-time cashier at this Salem, Massachusetts grocery store, also checking receipts at a nearby Walmart. She died on Saturday after a week in the hospital.
My last memory of her, seeing her sitting there in her coat, and her blue little hat, and leaving her at the emergency room.
She's believed to be the first grocery worker in the state to die with the virus.
And we have seen this with grocery store workers around the country. Victor with us live from Miami.
And it's as sad as the tale that is the, and I hate to say it, this is why I keep saying this is the Great Depression. Just the fact of the matter is that Jobless claims coming up. We're now we're actually over 16 million now unemployment claims. We are now running into some fact matters when you go to the food store that, you know, you might be lucky and find some stuff. I mean, even here in Tennessee, sometimes I'll get lucky and find stuff. Sometimes I'll have people fortunate that actually have more that I'll be able to give to people, and things of that nature. But it is getting scarce out there. And it's kind of funny. My dad sat there and said it my granddad was like, my granddad lived through the Great Depression. He could sit there and tell about the fact of the food lines and the soup kitchens and things of that nature. And this just goes to show you, the simple fact of the matter is, our economy is not as great as everybody thinks it is. When, you know, if we halt over one or two paychecks, how everything stops. I mean, grocery stores will always be around. I've always been taught this, Economics 101. Grocery stores will always still be around. Daycares will still be around. Funeral homes will always be available, and everybody. And it's like the only three things in life that'll always be around because everybody needs them. But the simple fact of the matter is, relief needs to change. And honestly, who knew that at this point that we have to wait for two sides who are wealthily taken care of, mind you. Listen, you'll never see a broke politician. Let me be honest about that. You'll never see a broke Democrat. You'll never see a broke Republican, because they get paid for life. Their benefits are paid through us. Everything they have and everything they travel on is pretty much covered by us. And I've said it before, Wall Street got bailed out. The banks got bailed out, which I think it's funny now the banks are crying about how we're going to cover ourselves because they don't want to use their own money. They want the government's money, so that way they're not losing money, which is kind of funny since how the banks got bailed out the last time. And so the fact of the matter is, the airline industry, every other industry, even including Big Pharma, are all getting bailed out. But when it comes to the American people, you are being told to wait. This kind of says a lot, folks, doesn't it? But that's all the stories we got, guys, and we're going to go ahead and go into our feel-good segment because, like I said, on How the Frack We Got Here, if you notice, we do try to cover a lot, but we also know a lot of the news we give, sometimes always pleasant, always positive, sometimes negative, sometimes just downright brings the mood down. And that's not how we want to end the show, because it's the weekend, sun's still shining, you can still go out, enjoy nature, maybe sit on the patio, maybe start a grill, maybe just sit down and enjoy good music. And I always say that, and I'm a big fan. If you enjoy good music despite your taste, like for me, old school music will always be good. Especially if music you ain't heard in a while. Especially if you hear some Bobby Caldwell. For all those that don't, I came back to let you know. Got a thing for you, and I can't let go. Old school. I'm sorry. I was raised in a house where that was playing during cleaning, when you had to clean up the house on Saturdays. Everybody that can relate to that, when your mom was playing old school music and you were cleaning up, and you probably heard Luther and everything else. Don't you remember you told me you love me, baby? You probably heard stuff like that. But I know my singing voice is terrible. Thank you for listening so far. But anyway, good music always makes me feel great. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm a music person anyway. But anyway, let me stop because, like I said, I have no singing voice, and thank you for listening so far. There are a couple of good feel-good stories that we do have. This one, every time I play this, I think I'm gonna make every husband and boyfriend in America feel terrible, just because of the fact of the matter is just that you now have to look at this. And what I mean by that is this story of a husband who can't be with wife with chemo treatment, but waits outside with a sign. And that's the guy. Because the wife was going through her fourth or fifth rounds of chemo because of social distancing. Her husband could not be in the hospital with her because of the fact that they're trying to enforce social distancing laws. So what he did was, honestly, it was almost like Say Anything. John Cusack from Say Anything. That's pretty much what this is. And it is loving that he can still read to her, they can still text and call, but he sits outside with the sign, I can't be with you, but I'm here. Thank you to all the staff. And I thought that was cute. But, you know, this is the picture of his wife going through chemo, of course, with her husband outside. And let's be honest, guys, you're going to have a hard time trying to not give your wife an excuse. Oh, so you can't come see me? You can't come be with me? What if I was in the hospital right now? You ain't going to stand outside with a sign? You can't text me outside where I can see you? Fellas, you going to catch so much hell because this will now be what she uses. I apologize in advance. But I just thought it was cool, and that just shows you if I ever got married, to my wife, yeah, there's not gonna. I'll be out there. I might be dumb enough to try to sneak into the hospital, but I will be there for my wife. And at the same time, it's a wonderful way of saying that no matter what, we gonna be together, and that's cool. And thank you for everybody who hearted. I'm hoping you hearted because you liked the story and not my singing, because like I said, I am a horrible singer. But you know, I just got enough confidence in myself to sing about a few lines, and that's it. But anyway, the last story I got here, guys, is a bar owner who is honestly paying it forward, and I just love the fact when I see business owners really try to help their people by just doing the small things.
We literally had money on the walls and time on our hands, and there was not a more perfect time to give back to my people. Each one is a little message of love, and now we can give that love in return. $3,713. One of my bartenders said that they are okay right now. I want to donate their portion to you. Yeah. What? Yeah. Oh my god, that doesn't pay my rent. I love you guys, you're amazing. They're so happy to be able to do this.
And that's cool. That really is cool. Sorry about the audio issues, guys. I was trying to fix it. I didn't know what just happened in that video, so I apologize if you heard a little feedback. Aside from that, guys, like I said, it is cool to actually see managers themselves, literally and figuratively, try to do the best of the situation and honestly try to help their employees the best way they can. And what best way can you do it by taking money that's been nailed to a wall? Because no matter what, money's still good. Although, for the fact of the matter is, like I said, if there was a moratorium on rent payments, utilities, things of that nature, that would help people out too. But like I said, we're gonna stick to the feel good segment about this. But anyway, that's all I have. I do thank you so much for all watching. If you're noticing this thing above my head, it is the Cash App for the show. All proceeds and donations, if you can, I will say this, if you can, will actually go to making the show better as far as getting equipment, other things of that nature, and just trying to make this platform better. So if you can that, the Cash App name is up there if you can donate. Also, the simple fact of the matter is, I am not the only cat that does actually have podcasting out there. But before I do get down that shameless line of plugging, I do need to say this. Thank you, everybody who has watched, liked, shared, subscribed, started watch parties, things of that nature. I cannot thank you enough for watching, just because the fact of the matter is, I didn't know where I was going with this when I first started this podcast, and now that I've been doing this for a little over a year, which I did not realize until Facebook reminded me. I've been doing this over a little over a year now, and I am still amazed that people are willing to watch it, encourage me, and do more. And like I said, thank you everybody who watches. Also, thank you, because I did actually hear this from this. Thank you to everybody who is a first responder, who's law enforcement, who's a nurse, who's a grocery store worker, essential workers, post office people, truckers. I think I've covered everybody. But then again, if you are out there and you're providing a service to keep everything going, even though it is wishy-washy at best, but if you're still getting up and you're still doing your job to help people, regardless of your profession, again, thank you. Just because you are risking your life to make sure that other people can go without, that other people do not go without. So I definitely want to sit there and say that, because as long as this is going on, we are going to continue to be thanking those out there. So if you see a nurse or a doctor or a trucker or a post office person, if you can do something for them, do something for them. But first and foremost, just say thank you, because they didn't have to. They made a choice and they still came to work. So they should be thanked for it. Honestly, a lot more should be done for them, but for what you can do, the least you can do is thank you. So for all those that are watching this, 'cause I did have a few nurses. There are a few nurses and truckers who do watch this thank me, and I said, no, thank y'all, because y'all, to me, are y'all the MVPs. And I had to go Kevin Durant. Y'all the MVP. You the MVP. But anyway, shameless plugging. I'm not the only cat here that does have podcasts. I will start with Vaughn, Big VZA Dot on Facebook, BigVZA Dot podcast on YouTube, and on Twitch at Big VZA Dot. Has a couple podcasts of his own. The first one is called the VSTs, or I think he calls them the NV's Vizzy solo takes now. Vaughn, you guys stick to a name, dude. But anyway, the VSTs is literally a interactive show. It's a news podcast. That news can be music, they can use video games, can be trailers. He loves the show. Interactive show just like mine. He also has Rhythmness, which he'll be doing later today, where you can reminisce over the rhythm, which he goes to the albums of the past and present, grades to a 4-tier rating system. If you wonder what that rating system is, you have to watch Rhythmness to find out. He also has Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ. What is Random as Fuck? Random as Fuck is the pool of ratchets we sometimes tip our toes into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Some videos make you think, some videos make you cry, some videos will forever stick with you. Mine is the old dude rapping in the booth. It will never, never, never get old, but it will still be funny. But anyway, all of his shows can be found under his Facebook page, that is Big VZA Dot, or his YouTube page at Big VZA Dot Podcast, or his Twitch channel at Big VZA Dot. Also, another brother, Thomas Reed, aka Mountain Puncher. We hope we'll do his podcast sometime. Basically called To Be Determined. What is To Be Determined? To Be Determined is a fitness podcast. If you see Thomas Reed on Facebook, he is a guy that is probably jonesing to work out right now in the gym since all of them are closed. He's probably doing chin-ups on a street light somewhere. But he is a guy that loves to talk about fitness, loves everything about fitness, and tries to encourage others to be as fit or to basically get fit themselves. And he always is a positive person, just loves to help people out. So To Be Determined every Saturday from 3 to 5 on his Facebook page at Thomas Reed, or his YouTube page is the number 2, letter T, letter B, letter D, 2TBD. Why? Because we're trying to beat YouTube's algorithm. That's why. And also, my other brother from Denver, Trace Brown, King Eddie Wayne on Facebook, DJ King Eddie Wayne on YouTube, has several podcasts of his own. The first one is called the, Bump Down. I got brain dead for a second. The first one's called The Bump Down, in which he goes over music, culture, knowledge, and numbers, in which he goes over chart work, he goes over album sales, he goes over what's hot and what's not. I usually call him now the Negro Dominus of the music recording industry, because everybody he has called so far, literally and figuratively, seems to be popping up. He called Meg Thee Stallion, he called Moneybagg Yo, he called Baby, he called Da Baby. He apparently, Baby's a popular name in the music industry now. Again, but he's called them all, and like I said, gives unique perspective on the recording industry, and I just love listening to it. Also, if you are an artist that wants music to be played, whether on Trace's Bump Down or Vaughn's Rhythmness, please reach out to Trace or Vaughn on their Facebook. On their Facebooks. Contact them, and they'll tell you how you can upload your music. The only thing you do ask that you do bring your fire, because you never know who might be listening on these podcasts, and it might be your chance to blow up. So, aside from Trace's Bump Down, he does have the Smoke of Truth, in which, like I said, the Check Your Ego at the Door podcast, where Trace, as I said before, is probably the most unorthodox individual I've ever met, but he has a unique perspective that I believe can bring a lot of people who are willing to listen to it. So, if you're willing to listen, then dadgummit. I'm gonna start using dadgummit. Dadgummit. I ain't gonna say dadgummit. Then dadgummit. Trace is willing to talk to you, because he always wants all the smoke. Dadgummit. But all of his shows can be found under his Facebook page, King Eddie Wayne, or his YouTube page at DJ King Eddie Wayne, or his Twitch channel at DJ King Eddie Wayne. As for myself, of course, the How the Frank We Got Here podcast every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon. And also later on this evening, probably from 6 to 8 p.m. will be the Off Limits podcast. So it's a podcast that does go there. It is community building just because we do talk about anything and everything. We are not afraid to go to subjects that most people would try to avoid, but we do try to actually have civil, progressive conversations because most conversations these days are usually trying to yell at each other, trying to ram each other's opinions down each other's throats, but not actually really hearing people out. And we try to be different from that. So if you want to listen to it, then I hope you will tune into that. And of course, Sunday between 5 to 7 p.m. will be the Get Bit podcast. It'll be my Blur podcast in which we cover anime, music, video games, sports, comic books, things of that nature, because there's many other geek-like podcasts out there, but not really a Blurred one, Blurred being a black person, a nerd that we can get behind, because there should be a podcast that is really for us, by us, for us to enjoy. And that's where Get Bit comes into place. All of my shows can be found under my Facebook page at William Buchanan, or if you go to my YouTube pages for How the Frank We Got Here and Off Limits Podcast, Get Bit will be coming eventually, but also on YouTube as well, in which that if you go also on YouTube, I have to explain this. You have to actually because of YouTube algorithm, you have to type How the Frank We Got Here all together, and also the Off Limits Podcast and also Get Bit all have their own YouTube pages, so you can definitely go from there, like, share, subscribe as well. The last thing I'll say about How the Frank We Got Here is simply put, the whole idea of this entire podcast is about staying informed. What I mean by staying informed is you're not accepting everything at face value. You are being presented with all the facts in front of you, unbiased, so therefore you can make your own decision up about yourself. The only thing we're trying to do is to inform you to do so, because an uninformed community is a terrible idea. An informed community is great, because an informed community can make a lot better decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one got us Dorito, and that's how the Frank We Got Here. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching, guys. Hope you have a wonderful day. Please stay safe. Go out unless you need to, and also be careful of who you're around, because like I said, the only way we're going to beat this virus is apparently not going through Kenneth Copeland, but just being reasonable, being smart, and honestly just trying to help each other out. That's how we get through it. Peace, y'all.